Today we are diving into a full mock draft from Dane Brugler of The Athletic. And based on the landing spots that you see on the other side of the screen over there, those are like the actual NFL mock draft spots. We are doing a 3-round rookie, superflex, tight end, premium mock draft. All right. So we want to get as many of these out to you as possible before your rookie drafts clip, because I mean it's April 6th. We got 3 weeks until the NFL draft.
It's almost time.
It is almost time for you to do unspeakable things in your rookie drafts, and we're here to helpfully help you do those things or steer you away from doing those things. So we're gonna do 3 picks each, then 3 picks each, then 3 picks each until we get through all 3 rounds. Now this is an interesting mock draft, as they all are. You know, and everyone's like, it's unrealistic. It's like, based on what? Most of you motherfuckers saying it's unrealistic, probably never watch an ounce of film anyways. You're just going off of what other people say is realistic, unrealistic. So we want to bring a nice little mix, a nice cocktail of different NFL mock drafts that we see. But Dane Brugler is one of the best in the game. So if he's hearing things like this, then I trust that there's some chatter, some chirping going on there about things like this, which is unfortunate because Adonai Mitchell's down there. But Jonathan Brooks is up there, and I love to see that. And he's going to be up there in this mock draft one way or another. As always, I'm joined with Adam, and I'm joined with Andrew. Make sure you are subscribed to their YouTube channels as well, linked below, because they're putting out phenomenal Dynasty content, not only on this channel, but theirs too. Y'all ready to rip? Sounds like you are.
That's exactly what that is.
Your next bazooka C4.
Bang.
I'm good.
Since you're ready, let's go 101, 2, 3, 3, 4, 5.
Cool.
All right. Caleb Williams, 101.
Dub.
Just
Enough said.
say less.
Fair enough. All right, for me, I'm going to go Marvin Harrison. He goes to the Los Angeles Chargers here. I think this is like the diamond landing spot. If he can go play with Justin Herbert as the number one in this vacated offense, locked and loaded.
How many targets would you think he gets as a rookie?
150.
I kind of agree with that. I think he's like as pro ready as any of them have.
He would be in the same conversation as Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I think after this year.
I'd say in this year.
All right, so I'm gonna go and switch up my QB rankings a little bit and grab Jaden Daniels here at the 103. He goes to Washington in this NFL draft at the 2nd overall pick. I like May more than Daniels, but they're both in the same tier for me. Daniels obviously has a crazy rushing upside, but more importantly, he goes into a situation that's way more inviting than Drake May going to New England there. So that makes me kind of disgusted, right? Like, I don't want any of these quarterbacks going to New England. One of them probably will. The fact that it's May makes me not really want May. And I'll go Jaden Daniels there. Now, with the 104, I'm going to get a little spicy here. I've been very much on the record, and we all have, Malik over Rome.
Till now.
Malik goes to New York.
This would have been my pick at 104.
I did the exact same thing.
Rome goes to Arizona. I'm going to go Rome Odunze because he fits in there with Kyler as the one there. And again, like Marquise Hollywood Brown is out of there. They don't have a real one. Kyler's been phenomenal in the games that he's been able to stay healthy and just play NFL football. And he's always had a pretty good wide receiver one fantasy-wise when he has those guys. And Rome is as talented as anyone in this draft at the wide receiver position, but most mocks just have him going to a shittier situation. Most mocks have Marv going to Arizona, Malik going to the Chargers, and then Rome finding himself either in New York with the Giants or going down to Chicago where it's a really, really crowded room already. So he just typically naturally falls into that third wide receiver role. But again, the talent is not great enough between Rome and Malik that these landing spots won't flip me, because I think Rome will go into also 130, 140 targets from Kyler right away. So, yeah, give me all Rome there at the 4.
Yep, I'm fully in support of that.
I think that,
thank you, guys. Thank you, brothers.
Way to go.
Thank you, my brothers in Christ.
This is where, landing spots, I think, should be needle movers if you have guys in the same tier. So, for me right now, I actually have Rome and Malik in the same tier, but I have Malik ahead of him. Landing spot can make Rome jump ahead of Malik Neighbors. But what I would not do, for example, I'm not picking this player, but I'm not going to have Brian Thomas, even though let's say they move on from T. Higgins and he goes to Cincy. I'm not going to get crazy and put him ahead of a receiver because of that landing spot. I think it's important to understand the difference for me and how much I'll give landing spots credence, essentially.
Agreed.
Go off. Oh, so it is my turn, isn't it?
It's kind of a wacky order, yeah.
All right, man. I am in the full sentiment with you, Nick, where the landing spot is so gross, but I'm going to go Drake May. I just feel like in Superflex leagues, I value the quarterback position. And look, I think it was a year ago where we were all saying that this Houston Texans landing spot wasn't good, and we know that if a player is special, he can succeed no matter what. I don't know if Drake May's special, but he is my best player left on the board, and I'm just going to take him there at the 105.
Yeah, I think the concern obviously is like, will New England will they put him in a situation that fucking ruins him? Will the lack of weapons means that he can't actually produce for fantasy until like year 3, something like that? But again, most players, like if they're good enough, if they're good enough to like get where we want them to go eventually, they'll be able to start really showing that by year 2, regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that you went before me because I'm going to take Malik Neighbors here. One thing that scares me about, like, quarterbacks is one of the hardest to pick in general, right? Like, who's going to be good and who's not going to be good, it's hardest to evaluate. But one thing that I think is really important for me when I'm looking at quarterback values is the landing spot, because we look at Bryce Young, right? One thing that we will do with quarterback is let him fall if we don't see it happen. And I think that Drake May is one of these guys that if you draft now, not that he can't be good. Like, if he was great, I wouldn't be shocked, but I could see where if he has a slower rookie season, people are very meh on him. I think Malik Neighbors, because he's such a good prospect, like we just talked earlier in the show about how Jaden Reed had 793 yards receiving, and he's like wide receiver 27. Like Malik Neighbors just has to hit a certain threshold to stay in the top 10, 15 at the position.
And
probably.
think of what we just did with Drake London for 3 years.
Exactly.
Like,
and Drake London, I will say that Drake London is a perfect example of if he goes off in year 3, that means the guys that we think are really talented are going to get an eternity to produce.
Yeah.
Yep.
Especially, it's always like the guys that have bad situations that we give a really long leash to, right? Had Drake London had Kirk Cousins for the last 3 years and produced at this level, we'd be like, all right, enough is enough. But the fact that we're like, oh, here's another chance, here we go. But I'm on board. Drake London
Watch Aaron Rodgers play and Garrett Wilson and Drake London go off in year 3, and now it's like, okay, all these guys are going to get a pass because of Daniel Jones or whatever.
And maybe deservedly so. And probably deservedly so. Like, how much can you do as a fucking wide receiver when you got those schlubs playing at QB?
Zach Wilson, buddy.
The reason I think it's actually, while you're correct, I think it's interesting because we don't look at it the other way. Like, Bryce Young doesn't have any weapons. Well, it's Bryce Young falls. Like, we don't look at it the same at quarterback, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is almost like we punish the quarterback for not having wide receivers, but we excuse the wide receiver for not having a quarterback.
It's the receiver optimism.
Yeah. Makes me sick, personally.
So
makes me sick that people are bullying Bryce Young.
Crazy. We shouldn't be bullying children like this.
I get a flip. I get dubs here. Okay. Let me just ask you guys as I'm making this pick, even though I'm supposed to be drafting against you.
Yeah,
what do you say about J.J. McCarthy going to Denver? I just want to talk about it before I'm not.
Are you making a pick or not?
I haven't made a decision yet. I'm just kind of thinking this out.
We'll talk about it after you make your pick.
All right. Well, then I'm taking right now at the 107. Right? 107? No.
This is that meme when the teacher tells you got to hit 5,000 word count, and this is at the end.
I can't count.
You don't know what I'm doing, so I'm going to just keep talking about this.
Yep. No, I'm going to take Brock Bowers here.
Okay. So we'll talk about Brock Bowers. Go ahead.
Well, all right, Brock Bowers. I think that right now, J.J. McCarthy. I've been arguing McCarthy ahead of Brock for most part of drafts. The landing spot and the draft capital. The draft capital checks out for JJ, but going to Denver with Cortland Sutton and not really much else, I feel like Brock Bowers has a better chance of retaining value. I do think that JJ McCarthy, if he plays well though, could skyrocket ahead of where Brock goes in Dynasty. Yeah. But I'm going to take the safety of Brock Bowers, I think, here personally.
Yeah. For a guy who drafted Brock, you talked a lot about JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, McCarthy. I'm not a fan of the landing spot in Denver. Like I kind of feel like. Sure, he's got Sean Payton, but listen, head coaches are they're as good as their quarterback is.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick, Brady, Sean Payton, Drew Brees. Like, you have an all-time QB ever. Of course, your team's gonna be fucking good. It's probably not what you're doing over there. So I'm not a believer in like Sean Payton knows how to unlock quarterbacks. You didn't unlock Drew Brees, buddy. He's fucking Drew Brees. But top 4 overall draft capital, I'm kind of okay with him. I would take him over Brock for the simple fact that like he's a top 4 quarterback, and we're talking about quarterback versus tight end in the trade market.
Yeah. I'm taking J.J. McCarthy. That's why I didn't want to talk about J.J. McCarthy.
The reason I talk about J.J. McCarthy, and this comes down more to J.J. McCarthy than it does Brock for me in the way that I took it. Why I took Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I hit on similar viewpoints on how I value the quarterback position with Drake May. I think the quarterback position, when you find that guy, when you hit on that guy, it is incredibly, like, way more valuable than what it would be for a tight end, honestly. So for me, I would just rather have J.J. McCarthy. Also, like, I think a lot of people don't give J.J. McCarthy the credit for what I think he actually can do. I mean, I think this is a guy who's a very good quarterback. I don't actually think he's that bad, and some people think because he had the low passing volume at Michigan that he wasn't capable of doing it for whatever reason. But when you throw on the tape, I think he can make all of the NFL throws. He's a little bit inconsistent at times. I think he could work a little bit more on the accuracy, especially when he's outside of the numbers. But overall, I think this is a good quarterback, and I think there's worse landing spots. For me, it's also just the draft capital, like you said, Adam, where this type of draft capital is crazy for a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we're not like everyone is terrible at evaluating QBs, so it's like if you're going to be picked top 5, along with the conversation we had about young wide receivers getting leashes, I mean, maybe that's not as true because we have seen in recent years the Trey Lances, Zach Wilsons, like those guys, maybe their leash isn't really that long. But you have to be like historically bad, I feel like. Yeah. And I mean, maybe that's the case here. So
well, and I think the reason that I think it's I'll go ahead and talk about Brock then. Now that you made JJ, okay, Brock Bowers in this landing spot to me, it like aligns so similarly to Sam Laporta in that Lions offense. And I'm not trying to say that he's going to be Sam Laporta, but if you just think about it, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's the number 1 commanding targets. That's Garrett Wilson. Yeah. You have a great receiving back out of the backfield, Breece Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs, which I think means that Brock Bowers, if he's drafted in the top 10 here, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, a guy that's not super mobile getting out of the pocket, you could be looking at a ton of pass attempts and a guy that ends up being one of the best tight end finishers in the whole fantasy landscape as a rookie, which I will say if that happens 2 years in a row, just a thought process here, getting the elite tight end might change in value. Like if people see 2 years in a row a rookie tight end come out and just ball, that you might start paying up for that.
Yeah, and you were talking about how like some of the situations have changed in the tight end landscape a little bit, where Diggs is gone, so Kincaid can really step into himself, and then you have Kyle Pitts with Kirk Cousins, so maybe he breaks out.
Right.
We have like 6 or 7 really solid like youthful tight ends.
Right.
The trade market could change,
sure.
relatively quickly.
Yeah, I was thinking about it from like if both of these guys hit, which is obviously the goal when you make this selection. If Brock Bowers does have the Laporta season, he's a 3rd-round startup pick, maybe back half of the 2nd-round startup pick. But if J.J. McCarthy hits, we're talking about a guy who could be a 1st-round startup pick.
Now, what's the floor though?
That's the thing is like I guess technically the floor really for all prospects is they could all suck and they could all be nothing.
Yeah, but I think the floor probably for McCarthy is somewhat like Bryce this year, where it's like what quarterback 20 something. He's a 6th-round startup pick. Mm-hmm. How far does a guy like Brock Bowers go down if he just is okay?
Here's my question.
Brock's floor will be the 10th round of startup drafts for the next 10 years.
I agree.
Think about like Pat Fryermuth, like average whatever. He'll be a 10th round startup pick in every single draft.
A great comparison is Pat Fryermuth. I think that's a great comparison.
But I mean, you're not. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, though, you're not drafting like a tight end for his floor necessarily, like a Brock Bowers type. But
actually, you know what? I'm going to pull something up while you make whoever's making their pick.
Yeah, I got 2 in a row.
I will say though, do we all agree that is a tier break right there? Like that's. At this point, I feel like we've dipped pretty significantly.
Yeah, I would say that's where things cut off. And I think you were saying this before we started drafting is like it's starting to feel like this is the locked-in top 8 picks of the rookie draft because there's so much chatter around McCarthy going. The last like 3 mock drafts I've seen have all had McCarthy at 4, whether it's Denver trading up for him or Minnesota trading up for him. But like at this point, he's damn near locked into a top 10 QB pick. And at that point, you're probably taking him 8 over some like 20th overall wide receivers.
Yep.
So I'll make my next 2 picks. And these are easy for me. If you're an Xavier Worthy fan, this is the easiest pick you'll make all draft. Y'all know I am not, so I'm actually going to pass on him. I'm going to take Brian Thomas here at the 109, who goes to Cincinnati, 18th overall. Fan of Brian Thomas's game. One of the first things I felt like I saw was that I don't imagine him being an alpha, which is perfect because he's going to Cincinnati where he will play second fiddle to Jamar Chase, but he is so fast. He is so explosive. He is underratedly good with the ball in his hands. I think he can do a lot and bring a ton of explosiveness to this offense that, like, Higgins, great receiver, not explosive really, So he brings a new dynamic to Joe Burrow and let Joe Burrow kind of rip down there. So I love Brian Thomas landing in Cincy. And then my boy,
LSU everywhere in Cincinnati.
I'm going to take with the 110 based on this mock draft.
You're going to do it.
Jonathan Brooks. He is the only first-round running back in this draft class. He goes to the Dallas Cowboys, 24th overall. He's a Texas guy. There have been a lot of links with Dallas liking him because he's a Texas guy. You know how they roll out there in Dallas with like, Jerry World.
It's a brotherhood.
It's a brotherhood
Texas.
out there. Yeah. So Jonathan Brooks, as you guys know, has been my favorite running back in this class just from like a talent perspective. He's obviously dealing with like the ACL coming back from him, and maybe that is the reason why I want to take Brian Thomas over him. But you talk about Tony Pollard being gone, like first-round pick in a Dallas Cowboys offense, like running backs. I mean, over the last 10 years, you probably can't find a ton of years in which there wasn't like a top 5 fantasy running back in a Dallas Cowboys offense. I think he's as talented as most running backs in the NFL right now. So landing spot, draft capital, he's got it all going on. And again, he's coming back from the ACL, but he's 20 years old.
Yeah.
He'll be 21 by the time he's fully healthy. I'm straight with that.
I had Brooks over Thomas on my board.
I think you could have. I think you could have gone either way. I think the ACL was the tiebreaker for me.
Okay, why do you say ahead? I could see. I definitely see where Nick takes him. I'm just curious why ahead of Brian Thomas Jr.
I mean, with the context that we have here is we don't know T. Higgins is being traded, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it could be a little bit more of a project for Brian Thomas to get onto the field. It could take a little bit more time.
What if
they
we've
agree?
seen we've seen a ton of situations where it's like it's ugly. It's like never mind, agreeing.
And I think for me, when it comes down to it, like I also believe that Jonathan Brooks is one of the most, if not the most talented running back in this class. Haven't officially penciled him in anywhere on my rankings personally yet, but I do think that the first-round draft capital speaks for itself. The opportunity in Dallas and as a first-round picks, it all speaks for itself. I think there's an argument that could be more valuable for your dynasty teams than Brian Thomas Jr.'s third option in Cincinnati.
I'll wait till yap till later then.
It's my pick, though. Yeah, I'm between two guys here. Part of me wants to not really keep beating the same drum where I say the value of the quarterback is what I want, but that's what I'm going to do. It was between Xavier Worthy and it's Bo Nix, but I'm going to go Bo Nix. And
I was actually kind of curious to see if it got to me. I just obviously you're a Vikings fan, so you take him here. Do you think there's a case? I think there's a case to be made that Bo Nix ahead of both of the guys in front. That was what I was going to pivot to, but that's why I didn't want to tell you. Give away my card. This guy's going to be throwing the ball to Addison,
to Justin Jefferson, Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, 2 bookend tackles there in Minnesota. Like, there's a lot to like. I mean, honestly, the reality is when you look at all of the landing spots for a potential rookie quarterback, in my biased opinion, I think this is the best landing spot that anybody could get into.
Nobody's going to – you can't debate that there's a better landing spot than Minnesota, for sure.
This just comes down to whether or not you like Bo Nix's
right.
Straight up.
I think –
and it's like the further he goes down, like each chunk of 10 picks is pretty much like a little bit of a risk.
Yeah. I just think from a positional value standpoint, it's fine. I'm not the biggest Bo Nix believer, I'll be honest. Okay. I have him – right now as my QB6 in this draft class. I have Michael Penix over him as a talent. But the first-round draft capital in the landing spot.
So I'm surprised you would take him over if you have Penix ahead of him, and I know it's second round to first round, but it is 10 picks apart. Like, Bo Nix went 20 picks after
the landing spot is way better than Vegas. I do think so.
Probably.
It's better, I guess. But
and I will say they are the same tier. It's not like it's a big gap between Penix and Nix for me.
Fair.
But
the other thing is, like, he's literally the first pick off the board in round 2.
Yeah.
You like
and
that?
So
you're a buyer of that narrative?
I mean, I think it just, to me it signals that they don't have the first picks. They were trying to trade into the back of the first, and this is what it would be, in my opinion, if this happens. They're trying to trade in the back of the first because they want a chance to get the 5th-year option. They couldn't make it happen. They found a way after the day settled. Next day, we go get that first pick. They've been trying to go get Penix.
I didn't realize. Okay, so the Raiders traded up to get that third.
They have to because I think the first pick is who has the first pick? Oh, it's Carolina.
It's Carolina.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I ended up going Knicks. I just think the landing spot's better. The ceiling for a guy like Knicks, honestly, I feel like is tough to decipher. I feel like, honestly, if Knicks turns into what Kirk Cousins was there in Minnesota, you would be way happy if that's what happened.
Of course.
But even
Kirk
then,
was like really good.
But nobody was super excited to have Kirk Cousins on their dynasty teams for many years.
I think like Bo Nix turns into Kirk Cousins. That's
absolute hit.
I mean, that's the ceiling.
Yeah. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And but it's just like you're not going to get a guy who is going to be a superstar.
Yeah. I mean, he could be Kenny Pickett.
Yeah. So again, don't love Nix's talent, but all of this is a good formula for I think him to be successful. He does enough well that he would be successful in this offense, and so I'll take him here at the back of the first round. It's good value.
So if I'm going bike to bike here. Let me go ahead and make sure that
it's important.
It is because
you're drafting for 2 different teams.
At the 112, if Penix gets the 33rd pick in draft capital, and by the way, to give context. That means that's one pick away from being historic. One time ever has there been 6 first-round quarterbacks in the NFL.
Crazy.
They're literally one pick away from making history here. That he's got to be a first-round pick in Superflex. So I think I'm going to distinguish. He goes 112 here, in my opinion. Now, there's so much about this draft when you start to dig into it that on the back end of things makes it really exciting. I think Xavier Worthy at the 201 going to who I'm going to take here. If you're going to argue a guy that has 4.21 speed, give me the quarterback that can hit him anywhere on the field.
No, facts. Like he can be a better version of MVS. And if MVS didn't suck, he would probably have put up like multiple 1,000-yard seasons in that Kansas City offense.
I think that's selling him really low to compare him to MVS here.
I'm saying if he was any good, he would have 1,000-yard seasons. Where it's like Xavier Worthy's better than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that based on the low end, even if Xavier Worthy's not actually that good of a player, just from his speed being attached to Mahomes,
I'm saying the role. Like, the role that they wanted for MVS is 1,000-yard a season, and he would have had if he wasn't terrible. So, like, that's where Xavier Worthy's going to be.
And I think that to get a guy that goes in the first round to Patrick Mahomes and KC at the 201 in the draft is like –
So they also
–
the other
I
thing
feel great about it.
You got to think about, too, we don't have any trades on screen. But I didn't really look at the trades, to be honest with you, in like the forefront of the article or whatever.
Yeah.
But thinking about KC, definitely don't have the 17th pick in the draft.
No, they traded up for this man.
They traded up for him.
They traded up for this man, exactly.
Yeah. So
smart.
By the way, making him a pick ahead of they could have taken Brian Thomas there. They took him one pick ahead of Brian Thomas. They traded up and said, "No, we want Worthy over Thomas."
Wild. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good
point.
point.
That's the Andy Reid taking CEH possibly, but we ain't gonna have to go down that.
I was gonna say I don't know if I really like. Yeah, they hit on Mahomes. Rice was cool too, but I feel like more often than not they're a little wacky with the actual skill position players when it comes to drafting.
Nick, would you take Worthy at the 201 if you were there?
Easily.
Okay.
I actually probably would have taken him right after Jonathan Brooks.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, you would have took him over Nix.
So you take him over Nix and Penix?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I debated between Worthy and
That's
Nix.
If Nicky Clicky's taking him at the 111, that's saying something.
I mean, that landing spot, you can't find a better place for Worthy because you already have a prerequisite for what he should have been in MVS, and you're going to a place that's completely open for like good quality targets in a small homes forever. So,
I don't think Xavier Worthy's as good of a receiver as Tyreek Hill, but again, Tyreek Hill, if there was only one person that ever was able to hit him in stride, and that was Mahomes.
Right, and now he's got that with Worthy. So
Fair enough. With my pick here at the 202.
Wait a minute. Oh yeah, it is. Never mind.
Yeah, it's me. I'm gonna go Blake Corum. Look, dude, he goes to the Chargers. Yeah, man. I mean, he goes to the Chargers here in this mock draft, second round draft capital. It's tough to not look at what him and Jim Harbaugh did in Michigan and say, well, why is it not going to be the same thing here?
That's really the only point you got to make. It's like he left Michigan to go to L.A. He goes, we're getting my running back now with Greg Roman in the early second round. We're going to get the fuck out of him. They also get rid of Austin Eckler. This is
really – I think this is extremely early for a running back to go in today's NFL drafts.
Mm-hmm. Crazy
this
early.
Is extremely early.
And what this tells me is, like we said, they're going to run Blake Corum into the ground the same way that they were doing it at Michigan. And people who have Justin Herbert on their teams are going to be upset because Blake Corum's going to be the number one used fantasy asset in LA. I guess they have Marvin Harrison Jr.
No, I was just going to ask. I think it's actually a good discussion. Eckler's gone. There's literally nothing in the backfield. So you'd like that for Corum too. But with all that in mind.
We're not worried about Gus, right?
No.
No.
Well, touchdowns maybe, but Marvin Harrison, you took him pretty easily at the 102. I'm just curious if there's any level of concern when you see Blake Corum going this high too, given what their offense
for Marvin?
Just from overall passing volume in the offense.
No. I mean, Marvin, look, the amount of competition that he would have would be nothing.
Literally
we talked about right away that he's going to get used so heavily, and he's so talented.
Josh Palmer's the GOAT right now.
That it's not going to matter.
I'm not arguing that you should. I'm asking the question.
No. I don't think it's going to matter. And the reality is I think both of these guys, they're telling us right here, this is our offense moving forward. It's Justin Herbert, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Blake Corum. That is how we are building this team, and that's what we're doing moving forward. These guys would be awesome fantasy assets.
God, that sounds horrible for Herbert.
Okay, I got 2 picks in a row again.
2 in a row.
It's on me.
2 on.
So I'm going to grab my boy here, Adonai. He goes 53rd overall to Philadelphia. And the way I'm looking at this, I'm not a huge fan of Wilson. I like Xavier Leggett, but in a talent perspective, they're not in the same tier for me. He goes to the Saints, don't love the landing spot. Adonai obviously goes into a crowded room with A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. This pick does feel like it says something. Maybe it's like we needed another third weapon because we've just never had that, and we've tried to make it happen over the last few years. But it might go to the point that we were talking about before recording that maybe they see that future Devontae Smith contract, or they see an out for A.J. Brown where they could trade him for a late first or a second or something like that, and they start an early kind of rebuild-ish, whatever the case may be. This tells me they got plans for Mitchell, obviously, to be part of their receiving group for a minute. And I think the other pick, obviously, I'd be looking at making here, which I will make for my next pick, would be Ladd McConkey going early second to the Tennessee Titans. Now, it's easy to say, like, oh, McConkey went earlier, but it's 15 picks. Like, when you look back historically at, like, second-round picks, it's not like, oh, this guy went 10 picks higher. He's fared so much better because of the weird little minute landing spot in the second round.
A.J. Brown went 51st overall.
Exactly. Ladd McConkey to the Titans over there. I don't know that I don't hate the landing spot, but they do have, now they have DeAndre Hopkins. Now they have Calvin Ridley. It's like, is he going to be high volume there?
I actually love it for Ladd.
I like any spot for Ladd. He's kind of the same for me everywhere he goes, to be honest.
The reason I love it for Ladd is because I think it would do exactly what happened here. I think the Tennessee just sounds gross.
It does.
People faded A.J. Brown because of Tennessee.
I mean, to be fair, he didn't play well. He didn't play great in Tennessee.
He was pretty good, but to your point, like, we faded him too much, but he wasn't. The ceiling wasn't as high for Tennessee.
That's what I mean. He was between like 900 and 1,100 yards every year, and it was just like we're never going to see what he could become in Philadelphia.
And why was that? Because they had for forever Mike Vrabel, and that team was towards the bottom 5, if not the worst, as far as passing volume. Brian Callahan comes over from Cincy, and watch this team absolutely air it out.
I'm excited to see what they let Will Levis do this year.
I'll be honest, though. I was looking the other day. I did a startup mock draft with one of my buddies, and where he's being drafted right now, I feel like Will Levis is one of the clearest buys in Dynasty right now.
The thing about Levis, I will say, though, while I can agree with that, Levis, especially if they make this pick, bro, he is on the clock where, like, if you fuck this up, they're moving on. Like, you can't have Ladd McConkey, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Hopkins, and be awful in a high passing volume offense, and they roll with you again.
I agree, but he's being drafted like next to Russell Wilson, and it's like we're ready to throw Russell Wilson away.
For sure. I just mean that Will Levis is basically at this point, like, if that's what they did.
Yeah.
He has a chance to skyrocket, but if he has a bad year, we're going to be like, oh, shit, Will Levis is out.
Yep. I agree.
But the range of outcomes, I mean, like, realistically, he might just be okay. Where it's like Derek Carr was a second-round pick, and he's just like, okay. Every single year, this is the make-or-break year for Derek Carr. 8 years later, he's now just on – it's just like there's a lot of credence to what you're saying in that if he's bad, but there's also, if you actually look at the realistic range of outcomes, he's probably not going to have, like, a Bryce Young last year. He'll probably put up maybe, like, 3,800 yards where it felt like they gave him building blocks to be a little bit better next year, and then maybe a little bit, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's very rare cases where a player is so bad that they're like, we got to move on completely.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I just think that, with the weapon they brought over Tony Pollard, you got Tajay Spears, you have Chig, you have all these weapons, and they're going to throw the ball a lot. Like, it's going to feel like Will Levis is the problem if he's not good.
It'll stick out like a sore thumb a little bit in that offense. I get it.
Yep.
Let's with this pick, he didn't get the draft capital that I want, but he is the next player in my rankings that I think is the most talented. We're going to go Troy Franklin. Troy Franklin went to the Washington Commanders in the top of the third round. And, Nick, you've talked about it before where you get that rookie quarterback and that rookie wide receiver coming in the same year. It's kind of easier to build rapport that way. They get Jaden Daniels and Troy Franklin and comes in. I think this is going to be a solid situation for Troy. I'm definitely a believer in the talent. It's going to be interesting to see what happens because we've seen them last year where this is a totally different team, totally different coaching staff, but we know that Cliff Kingsbury runs multiple wide receiver sets, that air raid type of offense. They had Curtis Samuel looking relevant last year at times.
Curtis Samuel's good. I feel like he's going to be a sneaky, really good player.
I think he will be too. But that tells me that there's room for 3 wide receivers in this offense to eat, and there's even a chance that maybe Troy Franklin.
Jahan Dotson 8 last year.
I was going to say maybe Troy Franklin is better than what Jahan Dotson is, he's the wide receiver 2 in this offense long term.
But I guess like that does beg the question, like if he's better than Jahan Dotson, like he still has Terry McLaurin, and what has Terry McLaurin's ceiling been there? But obviously new offense, obviously new quarterback.
Never had Daniels, like things like that. Yeah, there's a lot. It's more of an upside swing, I think, for this one. I think there's players whose situations are a little bit clear left on the board. But to me, Troy Franklin, he's still a guy that I have in that tier with Ladd McConkey and Adonai Mitchell, and I just feel like Brian Thomas and Adonai Mitchell, that's where I have him in that tier, and it just feels like he's the next guy off the board for me.
Makes sense.
Yep. What you got? All right, so what is this, 206? Mm-hmm. 206, this would definitely need to be a landing spot situation here, but I think Jalen Wright in round 2 to a team that still has – like Gus Edwards is gone. They need a running back really badly. I think Jalen Wright could end up being a great pick.
They brought a running back in.
Derrick Henry?
His name's Derrick Henry.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. That's facts.
Would you like to take that pick back?
No, I wouldn't. Okay. But I do think that
stand on business.
I do think that it's a bad pick now all of a sudden.
Shoot.
I'm not going to cheat.
If they're going to take him second round,
but I do
No.
I do think that this is
You can take it back. Take it back.
No, I'm not going to.
No, take it back.
No, you
Dubs in the
gotta
chat.
stand by your losses. You got to
Dubs in the
stand by your
chat.
losses, brother. They did bring
W's
in
in
a running
this
back. That's fair.
shot.
But I do think that Derrick Henry. I wouldn't take him here, but I will say that he probably is going to be the running back in waiting for when Derrick Henry's gone. So
Yeah.
probably.
ain't no different than Tajay Spears.
Right.
He was a running back and waiting for Derrick Henry.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Then they brought in Tony
that's a
Pollard.
bad pick, by the way. And then I'm gonna take a good pick though, and Tez Walker getting second round draft capital, which I do not expect currently. But if you go to a situation where he could end up being a Gabe Davis type player, we could talk how much we hate him all you want, but you get him in the late part of the second round, and you get a boom bust receiver that you just keep putting in your lineup. I like that a lot better.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not a fan of Tez Walker's game, but if he goes second round to Buffalo,
Yeah.
you can give me that.
I like him as like he's a long deep field option, but I don't think he's a second round pick unless he gets in the right landing spot.
Yeah, I feel like that draft capital is crazy for Tez. I'm
going based on the mock, man.
Fair
I'm
enough.
mocking the mock,
You know? I didn't have either of these guys on my board for my next pick, but I will say
you're up, huh?
Yeah, I looked
was
at you
ready
and
to
I
make
was
two
like,
picks.
Ready to rip.
I was looking at you and I was like, did you forget that there's a guy on the board?
Oh, I didn't. I was hoping you didn't take him.
The guy that I'm gonna be picking is Xavier Leggett.
Oh, I didn't think you were going there either.
motherfucker.
No, I feel like this is a landing spot where Michael Thomas is an unrestricted free agent right now. He still hasn't found a new home. Obviously, the receiver room going in is going to be Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Shout out my Weaver State boy. And then with that being said, I think Leggett profiles as kind of that MT replacement. He's going to be that bigger receiver, that red zone type of threat. I think there's opportunity for him to walk in right away. And although I don't think that he's like the craziest talent in this draft class, I do think he is talented. And this just feels like right opportunity, right type of player, right type of fit.
This would have been, if I don't take the Jalen Wright pick there, this would have been what I did. Tez Walker followed by Xavier Leggett. I agree. I mean, the draft capital too, top 50 pick in a situation where outside of Olave, what do they got?
I think Shaheed's solid.
Yeah,
He's
fine.
solid, but
He's fine.
they're waiting for someone to come in and take a real fucking
They've been
role.
needing a real number two.
I agree.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I like that. I would have taken Leggett there. I was ready to because I thought it was my turn.
Now what?
I don't love Johnny Wilson.
I don't either.
This
draft capital is crazy, though,
It's
man.
crazy. I've seen him actually go around here in a couple of the recent mock
Let
drafts.
me ask you guys this. Do you guys think there's any chance that we get Johnny Wilson potentially converted over to tight end?
That would be the best case scenario, I think, for him.
That
for me
never
to,
happens.
It would
What about
make me the
what
most
about a guy named
interested
Darren
in him.
Waller?
Yeah,
Did he come in?
Yes.
as a wide receiver, transition to tight end.
Like right off the rip.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
he had all the drug problems and stuff, but
Right,
after
for the first-
after 2 years,
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like it never happens on
like we draft
Like,
you and then you make your tight end right
when
away.
the talks like he should be a tight end. It's
Hakeem
like
Butler.
he's got a. I mean, he wasn't a tight end until fucking
No,
5 years in.
They
though.
put him as a tight end after his career was over.
Kelvin
basically.
Benjamin, all these guys
To
who are like,
revive himself.
yeah, like until they prove that they're a bad wide receiver, which also you don't want the guy that you just drafted to prove that. Like it usually doesn't happen that way.
I agree with you.
I'm probably out on Johnny Wilson. The only other problem is I don't love the landing spots of the receivers left. I'm gonna go with Trey Benson here,
Oh gosh.
who goes early third round to
That's who
the
I
New
should've
York
taken.
Giants. And this is a spot where like you want your rookie running back to go to right now. Maybe not for year one because Devin Singletary's there, but I think within 1 year, whatever rookie running back they take will probably take Singletary's job. Their offensive line is a mess. Their QB situation is a mess. Their wide receiver situation is kind of a mess. They bring in Malik Neighbors, but it's pretty messy right there. But I think this is probably where like Benson, if he becomes a player that we think he can be, will be the starter there and probably the workhorse there in New York rather quickly. So
Sure.
I'll go Trey Benson there. My next pick will be actually kind of interesting me doing this, but I will take the second Cardinal wide receiver because clearly they're looking to rebuild their entire room. And I probably have Michael Wilson on all of my teams at this point, so I actually have all three of the top receivers in Arizona up
me
to this
all of
point. But yeah, again, like they're rebuilding it, so like there is just fresh targets pretty much everywhere. And I also probably have McBride in most places, so I have the entire Arizona offense.
Do you have Kyler anywhere?
The only place I had Kyler, I moved him for Lamar.
She's gotta go get Kyler now.
Yeah, apparently. I will ask you guys a question then. Like in this situation, right? Rome goes to Arizona. Ricky Pearsall, who I I just realized I don't even think I said his name. I
No,
just
you
said
didn't.
the second wide receiver in Arizona. So I took Ricky Pearsall, who went 3rd round, 71st overall, to the Arizona Cardinals. I also took Rome Odunze. I guess different team, so it is a different conversation because the way we're mock drafting. But had that allowed itself to happen, are you guys against taking 2 players that were drafted by the same team, especially if they're the same position?
No. I'm not against it, especially if it's like if on the board he's in a different tier than the guys left.
Yeah.
But if I have guys in the same tier, like for example, I have Pearsall in the same tier as somebody else on this board, I might lean to the other guy.
Okay.
So
As like a tiebreaker?
Yeah.
I think I would have too, but I didn't like anyone else as much as him.
2 receivers on the same offense, a lot of times, like, I don't know if I want that. But weekly, if it's a good offense like in Arizona where Kyler Murray's a good quarterback, it's going to raise your floor. Mm-hmm. So it's unlikely that if you have the top 2 receivers in an offense that's good, that they both are terrible that week. But it probably also, while raising your floor, drops your ceiling down a touch too. So I'm okay with that in certain spots. But I think overall we end up overthinking that, I think, too much. Like, if it's the right pick, make it.
I so agree with you on that too. I hate like the arguments of like I don't want to take a wide receiver and running back on the same team because they eat each other. It's like also though if a wide receiver is going like 8 for 150, your offense is probably doing really fucking good that week and opens up more opportunities. So it's like
Right.
I took Marvin and Corum in this like same team.
Facts. Yeah.
That's because this offense is now consolidated to 2 players.
Yeah.
Not named Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are my 2. What we got?
All
All
right,
right.
go ahead.
Yeah. For my next pick, I'm gonna take another rookie wide receiver that comes in with a rookie quarterback. Drake May gets Roman Wilson. Roman Wilson goes pick 68 in the 3rd round. So to me, look, man, it's just really, I believe in Drake May as a talent. We talked about him probably not having any weapons. This is going to be his number 1 receiver pretty much almost right away. Really, the competition is what? Juju Smith-Schuster, Demario Douglas?
Don't sleep on Demario.
Demario, that's what I'm saying.
Pop.
So that's the
And
competition.
Kendrick Bourne will be back. But yeah, I get your point.
Yeah.
Those guys aren't outside receivers.
So you get Roman Wilson, who could come in and at least have a chance to compete for the number 1 receiver job right away with Drake May.
That's a fair point. I probably should have looked at him over Pearsall.
I'll do it. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay. All right. At this point,
212.
we are like, I don't think I can continue to fade him anymore. And I think Keon Coleman here is going to be my pick at 212. This is not the draft capital you're hoping for. It's probably not the landing spot you're hoping for. So
Yeah, all around bad vibes on that.
However, like,
Keon Coleman is bad vibes.
well, I mean, there's no doubt that this mock is mocking all the bad, that everything Keon we did not hope for. But they brought in OBJ last year. This is a team that needs another pass catcher for Lamar. I think that as he's getting older, we're going to continue to see this offense throw a little more. I think that Keon at the 212, it's like, give me a name on the board right now that you would clearly take ahead of Keon. Like, Keon's a terrible pick at this point. We're at almost the 3rd round here.
This is probably where I'd go to Jatavian Sanders, I think.
I was looking at
Second round
JT.
Miami.
And-
Good offense. They so badly need a 3rd receiving weapon there.
Are you wanting me to give you all my picks? Because
I was
No,
about
no,
to say,
I'm just-
yeah,
I'm just
that's a
saying-
diabolical question because I
Yeah.
actually
What
wanted
I'm
to
saying
see-
is basically
like clear cut. Yeah, probably not.
You gave me Jay Sanders. I can make cases for guys too, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying
Just for the most part, like Keon's such, for us at least, he's in a tier so far above them for like a talent level.
Right.
So now it's like, what do we do?
And there's not
What are you gonna do?
There's none of these other guys.
Forget about it.
None of these other guys left are the player. Like, we love the player, the prospect before landing spots, and the draft capital. We also like, oh, now these guys are in a great situation that's left on the board. So I'm going to take him there. And then
taking the guy we just mentioned.
I'm going to take, you know what? I'm going to take Will Shipley here, actually. Will Shipley going to KC.
Interesting.
We've seen now CEH was a bust pretty early. Obviously, Pacheco is not a bust. I think Pacheco's for real. But if you took a guy like Shipley, I think that's has the receiving prowess that he does. If there was any type of injury to Pacheco, he could end up being an awesome piece in this offense. And even without that, just on the receiving aspect in a full PPR league,
Maybe they use
sneaky
him like
little
McKinnon.
buy.
I mean, like McKinnon's. I don't think he's there anymore.
He's not. Well, this is McKinnon's replacement. Was what I was going to argue. Just if you talk about the floor, I think he's a great receiving back, and then the opportunity for upside. Like, he could end up being a league winner if Pacheco went down.
I could see it. I like it.
Fair enough. All right. Well, for me, debating between 3 guys, honestly.
Okay.
I'll let you get old boy.
You're a good woman.
Oh boy.
Yeah, JT.
Who you got?
I'm going to go Malachi Corley. Really? Malachi Corley, he goes in the 3rd round of this mock draft to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we know they just traded Deontay Johnson away. It's George Pickens and
It's a good landing spot for his fit.
nobody. Good fit. He's going to be able to get schemed open pretty often, I think, with Mike Tomlin there. Super, super talented player. I love Malachi Corley as a player. I think he's a unique player that's going to need a unique opportunity, but this opportunity fits everything that we wanted out of him.
This is, I mean, the one thing about it is, regardless of how I felt about the player that they draft, they are at the highest hit rate of receivers in this range ever. It's just crazy.
That's what I mean. And it's like
outside of James
time,
Washington, they've all actually had really meaningful seasons.
Yeah, and it feels like a lot of the times, like, whoever they're drafting doesn't always go into a situation that's, like, apparent that they're going to break out, and then all those guys just hit. Whereas, like, this feels like so obvious about what his role is going to be in this offense.
There's a major need, a major opening in this offense.
Yeah. All right. So, yep, thank you for leaving me my mans. We'll take Jatavian Sanders. Like I said, I think Miami just so desperately needs a third passing option behind Tyreek and Jalen Waddle. They did just sign Johnny Smith, which I think was like a really under-the-radar, low-key, super sharp signing for that type of offense.
Rumored with OBJ right now.
Okay. I could see, I mean, put OBJ in Miami.
Wait, who was this?
All the boats and everything.
Also, don't give a fuck about OBJ, though, because he's not a real threat
who
anymore
was
in
this?
the NFL.
Miami.
OBJ, Miami. So that leaves me looking at what my next pick is going to be. Just give me a sec. Spencer Rattler to the New York Giants. 4th-round pick, so no sort of promise coming his way. I think Rattler's going to be a pretty damn good pro. I'm kind of excited to see where he goes, when he goes, and what happens with his career. The Giants situation, I mean, it's as murky as about any quarterback situation out there right now. Definitely not for this upcoming year, but anything future. They're in a horrible situation, so I think, like, everything they do going forward is kind of like a rebuild for what it feels like the next quarterback. So Spencer Rattler's coming in, and Malik Neighbors also got drafted there, and Trey Benson got drafted there. So they're going with a very offensive-heavy approach with this draft class.
Did we go through 4 rounds? Is that what this is through?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm going Spencer Rattler there. You definitely could have – I forgot Johnny Wilson was still left on the board. Second-round receiver. Probably should have done that, but it is what it is.
What? Johnny Wilson's still on the board. I'm not drafting his ass.
Dub.
I'm going Braylon Allen in the 4th round to the Arizona Cardinals.
That was my pick.
And look, man.
This is the year James Conner dies.
This is it. This is the year. No, it doesn't. I mean, look, they have a need in that running back room behind James Conner, even if he's fully healthy and fully, who he is. I think the reality is Braylon Allen's a talented player. We've talked about this Cardinals offense multiple times on this show already. They are loading up. Braylon Allen's another talented player that they add to this offense. Just keep it coming, man. I want Braylon Allen here in the 3rd round.
Yeah, that was going to be my pick. Well done.
Is that who you're saying don't to earlier?
Yes. No, it didn't matter. So
Don't.
Next pick, absolutely reluctantly as a human could be, we'll be taking Johnny Wilson here.
Thank you. I didn't want to draft his ass.
And I wasn't going to let him go all the way to Nick, so I had to take him here. All right. Now I will say at this point, there's no one here that's like, yeah, I got to take him. There's some intriguing tight end options just from an athletic standpoint. But I'm going to take –
Who is that going to the Panthers up
Ben
there?
Sinnott?
Ben Sinnott?
Ben Sinnott, yep. Okay. I am going to take –
Not familiar with his game.
Not familiar with his name, apparently.
I'm not familiar with –
Sinnott familiar with his game?
I am not familiar with most of his life.
I figured.
And I'm not going to take a tight end here at this point. So I'm going to take Audric Estime because I just think any running back that gets an opportunity in the San Fran offense, if Christian McCaffrey goes down – I'll take him here. And there's no – like at this point, I don't feel great about anything that's left. And we're talking about tight ends that realistically may not get any work at all. Cade Stover would have been really interesting to me at Houston had they not just retained Dalton Schultz, but they did, and that kills that to me.
Yeah, man. Well, look, there's a couple guys that I could go, but for me, it is going to be Ben Sinnott. I am taking Ben Sinnott here, coming out of Kansas State. You look at some of the combine numbers that he produced – nothing's like blowing it out of the water. He ran a 4.68,
right.
40-inch vert. Actually, that's pretty solid for the tight end. But overall, it's just a guy that I think is coming into a situation where he is a good receiving tight end. So having the ability to run a full route tree at a tight end position is very good, especially in an offense that needs pass catchers. I mean, we talk about this team just trading for Deontay Johnson. Adam Thielen's there. Really nobody else, right? Like, I just feel like there's – what we want out of a fantasy football tight end is opportunity to be probably the 2nd best receiving option on your team. I think there's potentially a chance here, as Adam Thielen is aging, for Ben Sinnott to potentially be that guy.
Dubs in the chat. Bike to bike, I'm devastated that both Javon Baker and Jacob Cowing were left off of the draft board here in the top 4 rounds. We gonna go You know what? I'm going to take Luke McCaffrey here because he's Christian McCaffrey's brother.
I like that.
I'm not going to get any deeper than that.
And honestly, the draft capital was solid.
Draft cap, that's what I'm saying. Like a third-round pick, I think he was the highest drafted player left on the board. Going to Chicago should be a good offense in a couple of years. I just feel like that's probably a family that just like continuously overachieves in everything that they fucking do, and I wouldn't be surprised if he is really relevant in a couple years.
McCaffrey's the one once Keenan Allen is too old and DJ Moore leaves, and
in 6 years from now, Luke's going to be a problem.
A pretty funny comparison that I think is actually accurate based on his game and the way that he plays, and it's going to fall into that trap where people compare white receivers to white receivers, but he actually profiles a lot.
You're the only one doing that right now.
That's fair.
I am the only one doing that right now, but his profile actually does match Adam Thielen when he was coming to Minnesota early.
Wow.
So
Luke's a lot smaller, no?
they're actually fairly similar, especially when Adam was coming out. Adam was a lot lighter when he was coming out and things like that. But I've seen that comparison. It's not horrible. I mean, if Adam Thielen is his career, that would be a major hit.
Yeah, I'm more so just kind of just banking on what I said, was just I just feel like he's not. He will die trying to like make sure that I got return on my 310 rookie pick
for sure.
And my next pick's also just going to be a vibe pick. It's going to be Jalen Polk. He's a guy that I like. He goes to my Atlanta Falcons here in the 4th round. So sometimes you just want to root for players that you want to root for, and you want them on your team, and you want to have a good fucking time, and you want to have fun.
Jalen Polk, baby.
Jalen Polk is poking some fun in my game.
All right.
Is this my last pick of the draft, huh? Mm-hmm. I think for this one,
don't overthink this.
It's the same argument that I had with my guy Ben Sinnott, but give me Jermaine Burton. Pass catcher going to Carolina. It's either going to be Ben or it's either going to be Burton, but somebody has to step up, and I'm going to take the shot on both of them. Burton, actually, too, he's a pretty decent route runner and has had success at Bama. So,
all right, Dan.
I'll be honest, I've already feel like I've kind of grossly overlooked or let this guy fall down. And I can't let him not get drafted. We're only doing 3.
Marshawn
Lloyd.
Yeah.
And Rashad White is not incapable of not getting hurt. And also, I think he had a very high usage. This would probably signal they're going to bring Rashad White's workload down as well.
Fair enough.
Marshawn Lloyd, I hate that landing spot because I feel like Marshawn Lloyd is just a different version of Rashad White.
I agree.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to – are they just going to – I don't know. I agree, though. Like, you can't let him fall any further.
It's Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears.
Yeah, they're all the same fucking thing at this point, but he can't fall out of the 3rd round there, I think. All right, well, that wraps up 3 rounds. We went through the last one relatively quickly because it's not as fun as the first couple rounds, but thank you guys for hanging out with us for the entirety of this video. If you did so, make sure you go down below, hit the button that looks like this, subscribe to the channel. If you are new here, we'll be ripping out videos 5 days a week throughout the entire offseason for y'all. And that's it, right?
Love y'all.
That's it.
Hank, I don't love y'all.
Damn.